Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Okay, there's heaps going on in the world at the moment. A lot. I'm looking at thinking, well, I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to talk about this. There's still so much of the election stuff going on in the States. Everyone's taking it apart, checking out, trying to work out what actually went wrong for the Democrat Party. The analysis is a little overwhelming. It still seems like so many on the left just do not want to admit they can't see, or it's maybe they can see, they at least do not want to admit what's gone wrong. There's some voices of reason that are talking and saying, hey, this is what's actually happened. This is where we, the Democrat Party, went wrong. This is what we have done wrong. But so many of the voices, so many of the talking heads over there, they don't want to listen. They don't want to admit, they can't admit where they went wrong, what they did wrong. And a lot of it I look at and think, well, this is just pride. So much of it is just pride, arrogance. Uh, they just so full of themselves in general. Anyway, so I was looking at all this, thinking, man, so much to talk about in the world. And then you've got North Korea has joined up with the Russians. They're now fighting in Ukraine. There's still so much happening with Israel and what's happening in the war over there. I've spoken about a lot before about what I believe this is all coming together for the future Gog Magog war, as described in Ezekiel 38. And I think eventually, what I think eventually will happen is this war that's currently happening with Israel. Israel will be victorious in their fight against Hamas, and well, what really is Iran. They will dominate this war. They'll be victorious, and they will have a pseudo peace kind of come into play, and then eventually everyone will rally. Everyone will join together, and Russia, I think it is, they'll lead the charge, come back down for whatever reason, some reason that who knows what it is, but the Bible says, a hook will be put in the mouth and they'll come back down and there will be a massive big war in the end. But I believe, going from what the Bible says, Israel will be victorious and there will be a kind of a peace for a while. Okay. But Iran is never going to let go of it. There might be a peace, but they will hate the Jew for the rest of forever. Forever. They're not going to let it go. Even if they go and sign agreements and make some kind of peace, they're not going to let it go. Anyway, so you've got all these things happening. So much. You can't keep up with it. I can't keep up with it. But here in Australia, I think there's other things coming. There's other things coming along. And I want to get back to actually what started over in the UK, because I think this is going to make its way to the rest of the Western world. And that's talking about prayer and how prayer is it's starting to roll into where prayer is not just frowned upon, but becoming illegal in certain ways. So obviously, I've spoken about how they've passed legislation where if you're within 200 meters of an abortion clinic, you cannot pray, you can't have any kind of protests, any kind of signs out. So people living within 200 meters of an abortion clinic, newsletters were sent out by the government, by local councils, and that saying, hey, if you're living within this area, well, then these are the rules that you have to abide by. And basically, you cannot pray. Now, I had read some stuff, and there's a little bit of information out there, but I've been looking for some more stories. What else? Who else has been arrested? What else has happened? To me, it's such a big story, and it's so serious. But I wanted more stories. So we found some more stories. This one comes out on the Free Press, and it gives a lot more of the different stories the different instances that have occurred where people have been arrested, actually arrested for praying, not just praying as in going out on the street and yelling out a prayer, saying the Lord's Prayer on the street and yelling out, but standing and praying silently. And then police coming up asking them the questions. Obviously, they're Christians and they're saying, "What are you doing?" Well, I was praying. So they admit, and then they end up getting arrested. So, well, look, I'll bring this article up so we can all have a look at it. But I just think this is really interesting because, like I said, I think this is going to eventually roll out. When I say eventually, probably fairly a lot quicker than we realize. I think it's going to come, it's going to roll into the rest of the Western society probably a little quicker than we'd like to admit. So this is from the Free Press, Free People. Says she was arrested for praying in her head. So I'm going to read a fair bit of this. Not it's a really long article. I would recommend you go ahead and check it out for yourself. So citizens in the UK have been arrested, prosecuted, and convicted for silently praying outside abortion clinics. Even organising pro-life meetings in your own home may be a criminal offence. This came out on October 25th, 2024 by a Madeline Kearns. Emma has strong feelings about abortion. She wears T-shirts that say things like pro-life and proud, a devout Catholic. She is a trustee of a pro-life activism group and regularly holds planning meetings at her flat in Edinburgh, Scotland. On her way to work at an office in the centre of town, the 24-year-old passes the abortion facility at nearby Chalmers Hospital. Sometimes she prays with rosary beads as she walks by. Now, just so you know exactly where I stand. Okay, so I'm a Christian. I don't. I don't think there's any. Well, I don't believe in a lot of the stuff that the Catholics believe in. I did actually go to a Catholic boarding school for a couple of years. But anyway, if that's Catholics choose to do this, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's necessary. But if that's what you want to practice, you should still be free to practice praying in such a manner. Goes on. But now she's worried she could get arrested in her neighborhood for wearing that T-shirt. My goodness. For holding those meetings or even for praying in her head. So on October 4, Emma, who asked not to be named, got a letter from the Scottish government addressed, "Dear resident, its purpose was to alert her that her home, due to her proximity to the hospital, is now in an abortion censorship zone." Just when you thought it was good to live near a hospital. Nope. This is due to the UK's brand new Safe Access Law, which came into effect September 24 and made it a criminal offence to do anything within 200 metres of an abortion facility that could influence someone's decision to access, provide, or facilitate an abortion. In the Scottish Government's letter, Emma read that even activities in a private place, such as a house within the area, could be an offence if they can be seen or heard within the zone and are done intentionally or recklessly. You can report a group or an individual that you think is breaking the law, the letter added, before providing instructions on how to do so. I read that part about, you can just report people. And immediately I thought, wow, the government was getting us all used to reporting our neighbors and our friends during the pandemic. It was all, hey, we had it going on. It was farcical here in Australia. Everyone was reporting. We had people reporting their neighbors because they were having gatherings or because they were outside in their yard. And, you can't be outside in your yard having a barbecue. No, no, no. So people were reporting. They were getting us used to dobbing in on our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors. So it's just, as soon as I read that, I thought, there you go. That's what they've been doing. That's what they've been up to. So Emma couldn't believe her eyes. The law carries a maximum fine of £10,000. In June, it passed in the Scottish Parliament, following in the footsteps of Northern Ireland, which became the first country in the UK to enforce abortion censorship legislation. The rest of the UK is doing the same on October 31st. A similar law. It's not lost on me that October 31st, which is Halloween, not that I celebrate Halloween at all, but it wasn't lost on me that they passed this law, came in on Halloween. A similar law will come into effect in England and Wales. It was passed by Parliament in 2023. In these countries, the fine will be unlimited. So, what does that mean? Unlimited. You could lose your house, you could lose everything you have with these unlimited fines. That's ridiculous. So, all of this legislation codifies on a national level a trend that has been creeping across the UK for a decade. 10 years ago in 2014, Parliament empowered local councils to create and police their own antisocial behaviour laws. The intention was to enhance the professional capabilities and integrity of the police. But since 2018, 5 UK districts have used these powers to aggressively limit what people can do, say, and even think near abortion clinics. I spoke to 4 people who have fallen afoul of these restrictions, and a disturbing pattern emerged, the author says. So, can you see what's happened here? Parliament empowered local councils to create and police their own anti-social behavior laws. The intention was to enhance the professional capabilities and integrity of the police. But look what happened. You go and give these people, these councils, more power, and they don't do what you intend, what you think they should be doing. No, they take it even further. They use it for something else. This is what happens. You give a little bit, they take. You give an inch, they take a mile. The same thing I think is happening in Australia, which I'm going to get onto in a few minutes too, with the new laws that they're trying to push through in Australia. Okay, we'll go to another. So in November 2022, Adam Smith Connor, a physiotherapist and veteran, was interrogated by local authorities in Bournemouth on the south coast of England, which had recently introduced an abortion citizen censorship zone. His alleged crime was silently praying for 3 minutes while 50 meters from an abortion clinic. When council officers asked, "What is the nature of your prayer?" he replied, "I am praying for my son who is deceased," referring to his unborn child that he and his then girlfriend decided to abort 2 decades ago. So a man who feels a little guilty. Smith Connor was charged with breaching the censorship zone. Earlier this month, he was convicted in order to pay £9,000. He set up a GoFund page on crowdfunding website, which raised the fee within hours. He and lawyers supporting him are considering an appeal. Okay, another one. The same day, Bournemouth, also the trial of Olivia Tosicki Bolt was due to begin. The retired scientist, who's 64, faces the same charges as Smith Connor, but her alleged offence is standing outside an abortion clinic in March 2023 with a sign that simply read, "Here to talk if you want." Her trial was postponed to March 2025 to give both legal teams time to consider the implications of Smith Connor's verdict. About the same time in Birmingham, the UK's second largest city, Isabel Vaughan Spruce, who's 47, was arrested for silently praying outside an abortion clinic. So it goes down to talk a bit more of her later. Meanwhile, father Sean Goff, who's 34, was charged with 2 counts of silent prayer in the same city, as well as parking near an abortion clinic with an Unborn Lives Matter bumper sticker, a bumper sticker, and holding a sign that read, "Praying for free speech." And just over a year ago, in October 2023, a pro-life volunteer named Patrick Parks, 57, was praying silently outside an abortion clinic in Birmingham when police threatened him with a fine. Their instruction to him, listen to this line, "Kindly move elsewhere outside the exclusion zone where you've got your human rights." Again, not to harp on COVID, but I was reminded what happened to all people in my situation. I was in the police, where they said, "Yep, you've got human rights and we're not supposed to be allowed to force you to undergo a medical procedure. However," you flick the page, "however, we're going to do it anyway. And this is the reasons that we're giving. So suck it up." I look back now and I mean, this is what I thought at the time too, but it's all coming. It's all coming. Just as everyone's been warning, just as I've been warning, saying what they were doing during the pandemic was just getting everyone prepared, was just getting everyone ready for that time where, okay, everyone's like, "Yep, human rights, forget about it. We don't need human rights. We're used to not having a human rights. We're used to having our human rights ignored. Yep. Go and dob on your neighbors, dob on your friends because they're not doing what the government says the right thing. They're having a little prayer vigil. They're outside in their own yard, but they said the name of Jesus and there's a hospital 200 meters down the road, so better go and dob on them as well. We're going to see everyone arrested. So I'm reading all the story and there's a lot more to it. It's a very long article. I'm just going to read a little bit more because the article is too long to go through the whole thing. It says in 2014, when the Conservative government introduced the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act, it assumed that local authorities would create their own criminal offences for relatively minor public nuisances, such as leaving trash on the street and dog fouling. Parliament certainly didn't intend for this act to be used in the way that it's currently being used, said Jeremiah Ingunabole. I'm sorry, Jeremiah. I probably butchered your name, but that's a picture of Jeremiah there. I'm really sorry. What I just anyway. Jeremiah Ingunabole, a lawyer with Alliance Defending Freedom, who's supporting Smith Connor, Tossisi Bolt, Vaughan Spruce, and Father Goff. He explains that the law allows local councils to play judge, jury, executioner by introducing and enforcing their own laws with little to no oversight. As a result, 5 local councils around the UK, Manchester, Birmingham, and Bournemouth, and 2 London districts, Ealing and Richmond upon Thames, or Thames, have been free to implement abortion censorship zones. In language of these ordinances, often explicitly targets religious activities. In September 2022, the authorities in Birmingham, for instance, banned any act of approval or disapproval or attempted acts of approval or disapproval with respect to issues related to abortion services by any means within the zone, then cited prayer as an example. Meanwhile, Bournemouth's local legislation introduced in October 22 bans vigils where attendees audibly pray, recite scripture, genuflect, sprinkle holy water on the ground, or cross themselves if they perceive a service user is passing by. Genuflect, if you don't know what that means, I think it's like when you you kind of like curtsy or kind of drop a knee and like bow when someone's coming. Like I think people generally, it's like if you see like a priest or something like that, and I think that's what genuflect is, and they kind of yeah, bob their head kind of a little. It's not really something that we do these days. I think that's what genuflect is, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so the results borders on farce. So Father Goff of St. John the Evangelist in Banbury was summoned to a police station, in Birmingham in December 2022. After officers questioned him outside an abortion clinic in the city, he was grilled on what message his clerical clothing, he's a father, he's a priest, whatever you call him. He's a priest. He's wearing his little dog tag and all that stuff. His little collar, sorry, not dog tag, his little collar, showing that he's a priest, he's a father. Um, what kind of message does your outfit? What's that sending? He was grilled. He was also asked what he was praying about. Earlier this month, Father Goff told the Free Press what he told the police, that he was praying that God's grace will come upon us, come upon those inside the facility. Sorry. The police officer asked, what does the word grace mean? The reason why I'm talking about all this, why I wanted to talk about this, is because I think it's going to come into the rest of the Western society like a flood. Everyone is talking about abortion. And even though America has had I believe it's a good result. Abortion is still really high on the political agenda. Here in Australia, we've gone disgustingly overboard. Any abortion, I think, is absolutely wrong. However, we have gone to the nth degree where we are. If you're pregnant, you can actually get an abortion up till the very end, the very time that you're about to give birth. You might have to jump through a couple of hoops, but you're basically just you're killing a baby who would be able to live outside the womb anyway. And this is where we've gone in Australia. It's just absolutely disgusting. So if you think that these things won't pass, won't happen eventually, I think that's exactly where we're all going to go. And the thing is that our legislators, our politicians, they push through different laws, like what's happened here in the UK. They put through these laws thinking it's going to be used for one thing, and then what happens? They go and use it for another. So I want to I'm bringing that up, saying because we've got the misinformation bill. Everyone's been saying this is dangerous. I just want to read a little bit. I've already spoken about misinformation bill before, said how I thought, why I thought this is dangerous. This is, it's again, it's a bit of a Trojan horse. Is saying this is what they want to bring in, but we're going to have trouble, issues because they're not going to hold back with just what they say. They're going to be able to do whatever they want. So this headline, incredibly dangerous, Albanese's misinformation bill likened to 1984. So Nationals MP Keith Pitt, he's likened it to he's likened Labor's government's proposed misinformation legislation to George Orwell's 1984 book. Who in this place, he says, who in this place and in this country would think that part of that dystopian fiction, an absolute work of fiction, would be implemented by the Albanese government in terms of the Ministry of Faith, of Truth, Ministry of Faith, sorry, in terms of the Ministry of Truth. Mr. Pitt said in the House of Representatives on Thursday, the idea, even the concept that a public servant in a department will determine what a fact is and whether someone can have that opinion and whether they can have that reasonable belief is a yawning chasm. It is incredibly dangerous to this country. The problem is we've got people, like I said, we've got bureaucrats who decided, public servants who've decided that they know best. They can decide what a fact is. These are the same people that will stand up and support someone who, is a woman, but now pretending to be a man. And then even though there's all sorts of depravity on their social media, they will still support this person because, heaven forbid we point at that's their sexuality, that they're actually confused in the head and they're not actually a man, they're actually a woman, or vice versa. No, these are the people. This is what they stand for. They deny the truth. They tell you that good is evil and evil is good. They deny the truth and put forward their own definition of facts. This is what's happening in Australia. This is what's happened in the UK. They put forward this legislation, a Trojan horse. They came through and it's like, oh, by the way, now you can't pray if you're in a certain radius around a hospital that does abortions and around an abortion clinic. They'll bring in this piece of legislation, this misinformation bill, and then say, oh, yeah, by the way, you can't, if you put up something that we don't like, that we deem we don't agree with, that we deem is not our idea of a fact, well, then you've got this big fine or you're going to be taken to court. You are going to be arrested and you're going to have to prove, because we're going to say that you are guilty until proven innocent. Instead of at the moment we're innocent and proven guilty, this is what's going to happen. Free speech is getting taken away from us. Freedom of thought, freedom of prayer. It's all coming in just in different ways. This is how it's coming in Australia, I believe. I don't think it's going to take very long, unfortunately. To finish off, I just want to remind you what happened in the book of Daniel. Probably just read it for yourself, but in Daniel chapter 6, there was a plot against Daniel. Basically, these leaders within the nation, they were just basically jealous of Daniel. And if you've heard of the story of Daniel in the lion's den, this is why they were jealous of Daniel. They wanted to set him up because they knew that he prayed, because they knew that he prayed every day and that he wouldn't be, he wouldn't have his mind changed. He wouldn't be changed and made to stop praying. He would always be praying. He would stick to his convictions. He stood for something And that was what he was going to keep on doing. So they decided to set him up, come to the king and say, hey, how about we make it, you've got this time frame and no one can pray, no one can do these things. They can't pray to their gods. They can only pray to you. They can't do anything else. So he signed off on it. Daniel was one of his favorites. He signed off on it, and then they've come back and said, basically, yep, you know what's happened. Daniel is out there and he's praying to his God. So then the law's already been signed. So then Daniel gets thrown in the lion's den. Obviously, if you know the story, Daniel lives, God saves him. Well, the reason why I'm saying this is it's happened in the past. We need to learn in the past. If you believe in the Bible, like I do, you'll know that this is, I believe, very spiritual. It's a weird thing. And I think it's actually, I've heard other people say this. If anything, these people must believe in the power of prayer more than a lot of Christians do. And that's got to be that's the only explanation I can think of, that they would want to ban praying. They believe that prayer is very powerful, so they want to ban it. This is what happened in Daniel. They wanted to set him up, so they thought they'd catch him out by setting him up for praying. History repeating itself. I think this is going to end up coming to Australia, to all Western society, where they're going to continue pushing abortion further and further, because they're just worshipping the death of these children at the altar of Molech, and pushing against God, and pushing for prayer to be abolished, the ability to pray to be abolished. And because obviously eventually we'll have a false religion set up in the world eventually, but that's probably a different subject to talk about. But this is where it's all leading to, I believe. Keep your eyes open. All the other stuff that's happening in the world, don't be distracted. See all the other things that are happening and think, well, what's really trying to be, what are they really trying to do? What are they really trying to do? What are they trying to sneak past us? Why are they bringing this legislation in? Anyway, hey, this is all my opinion. Check it out for yourself. Read the article. I'll put a link up for that article so you can read it for yourself. It's fairly long, but it's very interesting. And check out the misinformation bill and the things that the Albanese government's trying to sneak past us. Like I said, this is all my opinion. I'm Jay Fallon. Thank you for listening to The Slippery Slope. Also, if you'd like to support us in any way, just please like and share, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Like and share, make a comment. No matter what the comment is, just make a comment. You can also buy me a coffee and all that kind of jazz. I'm Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope.
And say it isn't real, and please don't go away. Just give me one more day. What if I could turn back time? I'd make you smile again. And if I could unbreak your heart, and we could start again. What if I could turn back time? I'd make you smile again. And if I could unbreak your heart, and we could start again. We could start again. We could start again. We could start again.